They handed my brother a house before I got a happy birthday text. So I handed him a prison sentence instead. I used to think my parents just weren't good with words. Some families are quiet like that, right? My brother Finn came along when I was 6, and I found out they weren't quiet at all. They were just quiet with me. Every birthday of mine somehow became a planning session for something Finn needed. New cleats, a tutor, whatever. I stopped expecting cake around age 9. When I turned 15, they surprised Finn, who was 11, with a dirt bike on my birthday. I asked why. My mother actually smiled and said, "He's been asking for months." You understand? I didn't. I never did. By the time I got into university, I'd stopped hoping. I just asked once if they could cover even a small piece of tuition. My dad laughed, an actual laugh head back like I'd told a joke, and said, "You're a big boy. Figure it out." So I did. Loans, 2 jobs, the works. I told myself I was fine with it. I wasn't fine with it. Not when Finn got into a mediocre college 2 years later, and my parents threw him a party with a live band and, as the finale, handed him keys to a house they'd bought him outright. I stood in the back of that party like a ghost at my own funeral. And when they toasted him as the son who finally made them proud, something in me just snapped. I dragged the whole family into a side room, phone recording, and asked them straight, what exactly had I done to deserve 20 years of being invisible? My mother slapped me. Her ring split my cheek open. "You never learned to be happy for anyone," she said, like I was the problem. I posted the video that night, tagged everyone, and passed out on my bathroom floor from the champagne and the crying. The fallout was brutal. Family group chats turned into courtrooms. Half the family thought I deserved the slap. The other half, mostly my dad's parents, were horrified. My grandfather, in particular, was done pretending. He told my parents flatly, apologize properly, or he was rewriting his will. So they did. Badly. My mother's apology sounded like it was read off a cue card. My father just said what she said. My grandparents pulled me aside after and told me the will change was happening regardless. The apology was just for me. I actually cried real tears for the first time in years. I moved in with them that same week. I thought that was the end of the story. It was actually the beginning of the worst part. 2 mornings later, I was flooring it to the hospital with my grandmother barely conscious in the passenger seat. Someone had laced her food with a massive dose of laxatives strong enough that the doctors said 4 more hours would have killed her from dehydration and electrolyte collapse. And I knew immediately somehow that it was Finn. I couldn't prove it yet, but I remembered him at that family dinner, glued to her side, refilling her water over and over, disappearing toward the bathroom right as the food came out and returning a beat too late. My grandfather remembered it too. He didn't wait around. Lawyer, private investigator, a call to the restaurant to lock down security footage. All within the hour. The footage showed Finn slipping into the kitchen instead of the bathroom. The restaurant's inventory was missing an entire tub of industrial-grade laxative used for cleaning grease traps. The same substance in my grandmother's system. Circumstantial. Not enough to go to police with. So we started watching instead. Finn started showing up at the house to help, always when he thought I was out. Always full of oddly specific questions. Her medication schedule, when the nurse left, when she napped. My parents called me paranoid. My mother actually accused me of being jealous of a sweet, caring grandson. Meanwhile, threatening notes started sliding under my grandmother's door. Pills started vanishing from a cabinet that was, by then, locked. Every incident lined up suspiciously well with Finn's visits, so I put cameras in. One in the hallway, hidden in a smoke detector. One in her room tucked into a bookshelf. 3 days later, at 3 a.m., I had him, using a copied key, standing over her bed, dropping something into her water glass. I made backups of the footage before I showed anyone. Good thing, too, because Finn had an entire defense preloaded. Deepfake. Jealousy. He cried on cue, called me unstable, even floated the idea that I'd poisoned her and was framing him. It worked on some relatives. My grandmother's own testimony got waved off as confusion from illness. Confrontation wasn't landing, so I switched to infiltration. I apologized to Finn, told him I wanted to fix things, played the guilty older brother. His ego ate it up. He'd always liked having power over me, so watching me submit fed exactly what he wanted. Weeks of forced hangouts and video games later, he trusted me enough to leave me alone in his house. That's when I found the journals. Locked box, under his bed, entries going back to when he was 10, a literal manual on manipulating our parents, isolating me, gaslighting techniques he'd apparently researched like homework. The recent pages were about our grandmother, how she was a threat for defending me, notes on poisons and dosing, all in his own handwriting. I photographed everything, put it all back untouched, and spent a week building an airtight case. Lawyer copies, cloud backups, a handwriting expert to verify authorship. Then I called a family meeting and let my grandfather present it. Finn imploded in real time. First, the journals didn't exist. Then they were creative writing. Then I'd forged them. His story kept mutating in front of everyone. And when my grandfather read aloud the entry where 11-year-old Finn bragged about talking our parents into buying him that dirt bike on my birthday, my mother went white and silent. He tried one last card, accusing me of drugging him to break in, painting himself as the victim, sobbing into our mother's shoulder. It half worked. The meeting ended in chaos, family splitting into camps, and my parents walked out with him. That night, I watched his car idle outside the house for over an hour before driving off. The next morning, our mailbox was destroyed with a bat. Caught on camera, Finn's face clear as day. Police called it a civil matter. The harassment escalated from there. Slashed tires, dead flowers on the porch, a fake welfare check called in against my grandparents. Always just outside the line of prosecutable. Then an entire bottle of my grandmother's heart medication vanished from a locked cabinet. That's when we brought in a professional, a former detective named Rhea, who didn't blink at any of it. Within a week, she'd caught Finn buying dangerous over-the-counter combinations under fake names, researching lethal interactions online, and finally meeting with a known prescription dealer for a handoff. We baited him. Told the family my grandmother would be alone at the hospital for a routine test. She wasn't. She was safely tucked away at a friend's house while Rhea's team watched an empty room. Finn showed up with a bag, panicked when he couldn't find her, and dumped the bag in a medical waste bin on his way out. Rhea recovered it, enough opioids for a fatal dose. We finally had something real. But before police could act, Finn showed up at our door with our parents in tow, calm and rehearsed, talking about healing and family counseling. My mother literally got on her knees begging me to drop it. I noticed Finn kept angling his body toward the door, kept his hand in his pocket, kept glancing at my grandmother like she was a task to finish. He offered to make tea, insisted on handing my grandmother's cup to her personally. I knocked it out of her hand before she could take a sip. It shattered everywhere. And that was the moment his whole performance collapsed. He lunged at me, screaming that I'd ruined everything, that she was supposed to pay, that I was supposed to suffer for being born first. My father tried to grab him. Finn shoved him off and pulled a knife. That's when Rhea and 2 officers came through the door. Finn just laughed, cold, empty, dropped the knife, put his hands up, and looked dead at me. This isn't over, brother. The tea tested positive for a lethal opioid dose. A few sips and my grandmother doesn't survive the night. Finn was charged with attempted murder, stalking, and possession. My parents somehow still hired him the best lawyer money could buy while their own savings drained. 3 weeks before trial, he cut off his ankle monitor and vanished with a note. I'll be seeing you. He'd already liquidated his accounts, sold his car for cash, and gotten a fake ID. Rhea found search history full of countries with no extradition treaties. Then the packages started. No return address. Photos of our house. Of me at the grocery store. Of my grandmother through her bedroom window. Still watching. Can't hide forever. Family first. Rhea traced them across different post offices. Finn was moving, staying mobile, but a reflection in one photo caught a partial plate number, which led to a woman he'd been messaging on a dating app. We were closing in when it went sideways completely. I left the house for 20 minutes to grab a prescription. Came back to the door open. The security guard unconscious on the lawn. The nurse locked in a bathroom. And my grandmother gone. Chloroform residue in the garden. Different tire tracks than the stolen car? He'd had help. My phone rang from a blocked number an hour later. It was Finn. No more performance, just flat and cold. She was fine for now. He wanted the inheritance. All of it. And a public confession from me admitting I'd fabricated everything. 24 hours, the FBI got involved fast. Rhea's read was that Finn wasn't running this alone, and she was right. A recorded call from a shaken aunt caught a woman's voice in the background coaching him. Voice recognition matched her to a known con artist who specialized in targeting elderly victims and had inherited an isolated cabin from a previous mark. That's where the raid happened at dawn. They found my grandmother alive, dehydrated, terrified, but unharmed. Finn and his accomplice were arrested trying to run. The cabin was full of more journals, more research, even notes on other relatives they'd apparently considered targeting next. At trial, Finn tried to paint himself as her victim too. It didn't hold. The recordings of him coolly discussing how to stage our grandmother's death as natural causes ended any sympathy left in the room, even from our parents, who finally, visibly, broke. He got 25 years. She got 30 thanks to her record. As they walked him out, he looked at me one last time. No anger left, just nothing. My parents tried afterward to rebuild something with me. I let them try from a distance. They eventually moved states, started over somewhere nobody knew the story, and, from what I heard, started volunteering with at-risk teens. Maybe that's real. Maybe it's just another performance. I've stopped needing to know. My grandparents formally adopted me at 23. It sounds unnecessary at that age, but it wasn't. It was the first time in my life someone chose me on purpose. I finished school debt-free, built a career I actually like, started therapy, and slowly stopped flinching every time a car slowed down outside. My grandmother lived another 6 good years before passing peacefully. I still visit her grave every Sunday with my grandfather, who's slower now, but still sharp enough to tell the story better than I can. A few years back, I got a letter from Finn. Therapy, apparently. Understanding, apparently. He didn't ask for forgiveness, just wanted me to know he was trying. I never wrote back. Some things don't get rebuilt. They just get survived. I have my own family now. My own kids know without question that they're loved equally. No golden child, no invisible one. The cycle stopped with me. Sometimes I drive past my parents' old house, now owned by strangers, and think about the kid who just wanted someone to remember his birthday. He got there in the end, just not from the people who were supposed to give it to him.